Well, here we are again talking about a new graphics card. 3070s and 3080s are just starting to come back into stock, so should you care about a super high-end niche product that most consumers probably can't or don't want to afford? This is the 3090 Ti. Let's talk about it. Let's get right to the numbers on this one, as I know that's the main draw of these types of videos. Performance, power consumption, and price are the most important buying considerations, so here they are. Make sure to get subscribed to the channel if you appreciate this abbreviated intro, and make sure to stick around afterwards, as I'll talk more about this specific Zotac card and my opinion on it. I used my daily driver editing PC as the test bench for this one, which includes a 12900K and 64 gigs of DDR5 in an enclosed case and a 360mm AIO. I tested against an RTX 3080 and an RTX 3090, and here are the results. Power consumption was scaled up considerably from both the 3080 and the 3090. While on average the RTX 3080 Gaming X Trio sucked up 337 watts and the RTX 3090 Strix averaged 387 watts at load, the RTX 3090 Ti took in a massive 446 watts. This is one of the reasons that the recommended power supply is at minimum 850 watts, and more realistically, you should aim for 1000 watts of system power to be more on the safe side. Systems that want one of these massive flagship GPUs will also likely have high-end, high core count CPUs, lots of memory, and, let's be honest, tons of RGB lighting. Temperature would normally be the next thing we would touch on, but given that I have 3 different cards from 3 different vendors and none of them is the FE model, I'm not going to do a straight comparison. Rather, I'll just say that this specific 3090 Ti from Zotac, their Holoblack, did run reasonably cool in an enclosed case despite that massive power draw. That likely has something to do with the absolute tank of a cooling shroud that they have strapped to the PCB, which is longer, wider, and thicker than even the 3090 Strix. Next, let's run through some gaming numbers. These tests were all run at 4K and maxed out settings, with ray tracing turned on if available and no DLSS assist. Guardians of the Galaxy was up first and ran at 13 FPS on average. This was 13% faster than the RTX 3090 and 24% faster than the 3080. An impressive start. Next, I ran Red Dead Redemption 2 with the Vulkan API and saw an 86 FPS average across the entire built-in benchmark. This was an increase of only 8% over the 3090, but 21% over the 3080. Far Cry 6 posed an interesting challenge. I ran this benchmark with the HD texture pack enabled, which was no problem at all for the 3090 and the 3090 Ti. But the 3080 struggled mightily, and I even got a low VRAM warning message that preceded a result of 13 FPS with the 3080. In order to have the benchmark complete with a relatively reasonable result, I turned off the HD texture pack here. This is really showing the limitations of 10 gigs of VRAM if you really enjoy that 4K gaming experience. The result for the 3090 Ti was 76 FPS, which was an improvement of 6% over the 3090. Metro Exodus is still a punishing to run game without DLSS enabled, and that was reflected in our results. The mighty 3090 Ti managed only a meager 42.5 FPS here, but that was still 13% better than the 3090 and a 26% bump over the 3080. The last gaming test I ran was Assassin's Creed Valhalla, and the spread here was honestly pretty tight. While the 3090 Ti was 16% faster than the 3080, it only managed to best the 3090 by 3%. Here's an overall comparison chart for these gaming results, using the RTX 3080 as a baseline. You can see the performance scaling across all tests here, and if we average it out, the 3090 Ti is 20% faster than the 3080 and 8.6% faster than the 3090. I also tried it out while editing a few projects in Adobe Premiere and saw no difference in timeline scrubbing or export times, so we'll call that one a wash. But my videos tend to be light on heavy adjustment layers and have no 3D effects, so maybe there is a difference between these two that I really couldn't experience. Now let's double back and talk about this specific card a little bit. This is the Zotac Amp Holoblack. It's hard to describe a card like any 3090 Ti as anything other than a flagship, but this is Zotac's 3090 Ti flagship. It features a redesigned shroud with a triple fan design and this really cool color shifting accent piece. I almost think it would look better if it didn't light up, but there are RGB LEDs behind here as well as on the backplate that are controllable through their Firestorm app. Here's a peek at what it looks like all powered up and in action inside of my case. You might notice, however, from these shots that the power connector is different. The 3090 Ti comes with a new 16-pin PCIe power plug, which requires either a power supply with that 16-pin connector, which are coming soon, or the use of a very awkward-looking adapter that merges 3 standard 8-pin PCIe power leads into one. This adapter will come in the box with 3090 Ti's, so if you don't have a power supply that likely won't be on the market yet by the time you watch this, you can still power the card. Just don't expect your build to be show-worthy anytime soon, as the adapter is bulky and cumbersome. This is a requirement for these cards, as it can deliver up to 600 total watts, and these cards, as we've already demonstrated, will be awfully greedy. Let's compare the specs of the top end of NVIDIA's lineup to see where the 3090 Ti makes its gains. The headliner here for me is the increase in overall memory bandwidth, as the increase over the 3090 in other areas like CUDA cores and tensor cores is relatively small. The 3090 Ti increases the memory clock significantly, even though it uses the same 384-bit bus as the 3090. It also does bump the clock speed, although in real-world testing, both of these cards ran at approximately the same speed, bouncing around between 1900 and 2000 megahertz due to GPU boost. Now, price is a tricky thing these days. While cards like the 3080 are trending back downwards, finding one for the initial listed MSRP of $700 is a dream long since forgotten. Tariffs, shortages, material availability, and honestly just greed have affected what our baseline should be now, and $1,100 to $1,200 is the new normal pricing for these cards. Similarly, the 3090 can't be found for $1,500 as advertised. Instead, you're looking more along the lines of $1,900. The 3090 Ti is supposed to be available for $2,000 at launch, but honestly, I'd be pretty floored if we don't see these going for more along the lines of $2,300. With that being said, tariffs are now being removed from a lot of PC-related products, and we might start to see prices drop back down even further towards their initial listed MSRP. If the perfect storm happens and we see a $1,500 RTX 3090 and a $2,000 RTX 3090 Ti, is that extra $500 worth it? In the case of the Zotac card, it would actually be $600, as the MSRP on this one is $2,100. So paying an extra 33% on top of an already steep investment for just a few percentage points in games doesn't seem great to me. A lot of these 3090 Ti models, especially board partner cards, are going to be huge. The Zotac Holo is enormous, but surprisingly has no issue staying level in my case and didn't need an external support bracket. Still though, fitment will be tight at best for a lot of users, so be sure to check the dimensions of the one that you plan to buy. The Amp Holo takes up over 3 slots of space and is longer than, well, you know. Connectivity on the back is pretty standard these days with 1 HDMI and 3 DisplayPort output. So what is my overall opinion on the RTX 3090 Ti? It's really kind of hard to wrap my head around, honestly. These cards use the same GA102 silicon as the 3080, 3080 Ti, and 3090. Would it have just been better for consumers if NVIDIA allocated these GPU dies to production of those cards instead? I'm gonna say probably. The RTX 3090 is a hard sell as is. It's enormously expensive, power hungry, and the percentage of people who can actually utilize the massive frame buffer that it offers is incredibly small. But it exists for a small subset of the PC population that will use it for some 3D modeling, scene rendering, or maybe 8K raw video, apparently playing Far Cry 6 also. The 3090 Ti is just 8.6% faster than the 3090 in games. It offers the same 24 gigs of G6X, essentially the same clock speed after boost, and only marginally more CUDA cores. So does it need to exist, or is it just a blatant cash grab? I'm honestly not sure. The additional performance it provides can shave valuable time off of huge projects. Rendering out a complicated 3D scene can take days, and on that scale of time, chopping off 8% is enormously valuable. So for the top end of professional workloads, I'm gonna buck what will likely be the trend in these reviews and say yes, the 3090 Ti is worth it. It's a valuable addition to the NVIDIA product stack, and should be a serious purchase consideration. But for everybody else, I'm going to say that you should probably pass. This Zotac card looks great. It runs cool, it doesn't sag, and it performs well. There's nothing bad about this specific AIB partner model, and I don't blame Zotac for putting out a version of NVIDIA's latest. But the underlying silicon itself is just almost unexciting at this point. It's going to get scooped up because of course it is, and people will be excited that they now have the best of the best. But will gaming experiences change in any meaningful way? No. Will you have any kind of real advantage over your competition, even if they're running a 3080? Probably not. Will you be able to brag about it on social media? I mean, I guess so, but in that case, there are probably better ways to spend a few $1,000s, like taking a trip to Europe or something. So, what is your opinion of the RTX 3090 Ti? Make sure to sound off in the comments down below. Also, don't forget that if you like this video to hit that subscribe and thumbs up button on your way out. Thanks for watching, everybody, and I'll see you next time.